Thanks for coming. My name's Eappariello. I'm Senior Vice President for EMEA and APJ for my sins at iboss. So I've been at iboss for about 10 years. I've been working in network security. Hey guys, good morning. You haven't missed anything. I'm just getting going quick. I don't know. Must be getting on for 30 years now. Old. I'm getting very old. So this morning I've got a bit of an agenda. I guess it will be my personal views on some of these things. Trying to keep it high level, talking about the general threat landscape right now, perhaps something that you know already, but again, from my personal view, how we might redefine network security and how we're going to deliver it now and in the future. Protecting our users and just finding the right fit for your business, and we'll throw it open for a bit of a Q&A. Hey guys. So, and it's interesting. I cover quite wide regions, and I always find it interesting. Oh, people are going for the front seat. This is great. I was just about to say, in Europe, nobody wants to go for the front seats. And then I go to places like Japan, and they fill it up from the front backs. It's always curious to me. I must do a study on that one day. So yeah, thanks for coming, guys. You haven't missed anything. Don't worry. I was just talking about me. Okay, so let me start by the threat landscape, and I guess everybody's got their own views on this, and I'm not going to tell you anything new here, but it's always good to remember what we're dealing with, and when we talk about reducing risk and business resilience, like what kind of risk are we reducing, and how are we trying to make our businesses more resilient, and what type of threats are we dealing with? Nearly everything that we talk about here, the underlying threat, if you like, is the risk of productivity loss, the risk of data loss. No matter what we talk about, whether it's artificial intelligence, whether it's the threat of ransomware, that's what the core business is worried about, right? We're worried about losing intellectual property. We're worried about someone stealing their data and holding it to ransom, whatever the threat may be. So generally speaking, we're still finding phishing and ransomware, they kind of go hand in hand. These are definitely still the biggest threat vectors that we see out there, that I see out there, that I talk about on quite a regular basis. The last time I did this talk was a couple of weeks ago. I was out in Southeast Asia, and I happened to be in a country where the government agencies, 3 of them had been hit with ransomware. And if we think back, was it pre-pandemic or pandemic? My memory's getting bad. We went through the same, right? A lot of our local councils and NHS trusts were getting hit, and it wasn't. I can't say it was. It probably wasn't. Some of those our customers were good, thankfully enough, but a lot of them were calling us up, and I can't say it was really targeted attacks at that time. I'm going back probably 4 years. It was just that certain verticals were more prone to these type of threats. So phishing, ransomware, social engineering is definitely a more kind of targeted attack. We still see that. We still see that happening, and insider threat. So those 2 things I think can be mitigated, and we can reduce risk on education. I think that's still the best way. It's probably not a product solution here to those type of threats. It's user education, making people aware of what does a phishing email look like, when should I be worried, who should I ask, all of those kind of things that we want to educate our customers on. And fundamentally, all of these things are normally taking advantage of some kind of vulnerability and exploit. That's normally the chain of events that we see. So this probably hasn't changed, during the pandemic. And I used the pandemic as a bit of a marker as I go through these slides. The way we're all working perhaps the way we think about even these events. You know, do we attend face-to-face event, or do we just go virtual now? That time during the pandemic really changed how we're all working and thinking about security and how we protect our customers and our users. So ransomware is still the big one. Just out of interest, how many of you see ransomware as a threat, or how many of you think that you've mitigated this threat completely?
That's two questions in one.
It was. Yeah, sorry, yeah. Do you still see it as a threat?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. There's no silver bullet, right? And it's got harder, if anything, right? With remote working, using different types of devices, it's just become harder to protect against. And I think the hardest thing about ransomware is, although it can be, we've got things like ransomware as a service, where people can literally just go out there without any much technical skill and create their own ransomware and then go target someone. A lot of the ransomware attacks we still see are kind of random. They're almost drive-bys, and someone's just got hit by a mass email, or they've just gone to a website that's been infected and compromised, and they just get hit by it. So certainly some of the customers I speak to, I really feel for them, because, you know, they feel targeted, but sometimes they're just not. They're just, you know, it's just a random attack, unfortunately. So, you know, it's definitely right up there. Phishing's still the biggest delivery method for ransomware attacks. I don't know about you guys, but I get so many. It's almost becoming, you know, the amount of emails we get is life-affecting almost, isn't it? You just can't turn off. Thank God for Do Not Disturb on phones, the fact we can turn them off. But when you're dealing with that amount of emails, and you're always conscious that you don't want to miss anything or anything looks important, I use Outlook Focused Inbox, and it helps. Thank you, Microsoft. You know, I'd say 90%, 92% of my email goes into the unfocused inbox. But I'm still conscious, right? As a customer try to contact me if I miss something important. And they're clever guys. I mean, I got caught out last year. It was a TV license thing, I think. I was on a plane, I was tired, just got off. Oh, my TV license is going to expire. I need to go update my credit card information. They got me. I got a call from pertaining to be Barclays, and he messed up straight away, asking me for information off my card, you know. But it was very convincing, very convincing. Definitely from overseas, but Midlands accent, you know, knew the Barclays protocol. It was scary. It was quite scary. So yeah, there's still a big threat out there, and it's, at the end of the day, it's data loss. Whether we call it data theft, data loss, that is essentially what ransomware is all about. When I think perhaps in a few years ago, we might have thought about data loss as someone uploading something they shouldn't do, someone getting into the network and you know, stealing something and then publishing it. But you know, ransomware is all about taking that data, encrypting it, making it inaccessible to you, and then trying to get some financial gain out of it. So even worse than it was before. Pretty much seen this pretty much across all the verticals. Surprisingly enough, we work in education a fair bit, more in the US. We're a US-based company, a headquartered company, but education is quite prone to this just for the amount of internet usage, and it's quite easy to target younger people and craft emails in the way to target them that way. But you know, government, local government, commercial sector, oil and gas manufacturing, we've seen it right across the board. So when people say, am I a target for this kind of thing, kind of everybody is, just because of the sheer random nature of this type of attack. But enough ransomware, I think we're all aware of it. So how do we reduce risk? Right, I'm not going to stand up here and tell you that, you know, buy our product and you'll eradicate risk. We know that's not true. We know things like zero trust is now stamped onto just about every talk and every product packaging that we see, and that's not a silver bullet either. And just out of interest, has everyone figured out SASE, SSE, zero trust, all of these new acronyms we're dealing with? We've got a pretty good grip on it now, hopefully. So again, go back to pre-pandemic, we didn't have any of those acronyms. I think SASE came out in 2019. Thank you, Gartner. For me, it made our space a little bit confusing. The ultimate aim of things like secure access service edge, secure service edge, and things like zero trust architecture, the first two are all about consolidation. I think one of the things that we want to try to do is simplify things, consolidate our security stack. We've got a lot of tools. When did we start doing this? When was I've been around a long time. I probably installed a modem. I think I worked for a law firm at the time, and it used to dial up. I'm going about maybe 93, 94. It used to dial up every hour, and it used to pull down emails and deliver them to the partners. They were the only ones that were allowed an email address, and they were pretty much arranging their lunches all the time. But that was when we started thinking about security, like probably early 90s, mid 90s. And during that time, there's been fads and there's been concepts, and we were doing things really up until the last 5 or 6 years inside the network. You know, we were building that fortress, we were building that secure perimeter. So firewalls, IPS systems, proxy servers, all these kind of tools. But what happened was we ended up with really a security stack. And it's made life quite difficult because we've got lots of products, we're generating lots of intelligence and lots of logs, but now it's hard to see the wood for the trees. So one of the aims that we want to do for that ultimate goal of reducing risk, we can't eradicate it, we can't transfer it completely, but we can reduce risk, is consolidation. So, and the other way of doing it, of course, is getting away from this concept of the perimeter, the physical perimeter. We know that I'm yet to find a vertical now since the pandemic that doesn't have some kind of remote working or doesn't have some kind of directive on when people can work at home, when they can use their own mobile devices. And organisations are making these decisions based on risk acceptance. You know, I want more productivity. I want my users to work at home. I don't know if they're all going to be stuck at home again. And actually, during the pandemic, I was seeing some more productivity. I don't want everybody back in the office. Actually, I sold 2 floors, and I can't get everybody back in the office, so I have to have remote workers. So there's going to be a level of risk acceptance when we do this, because we don't have everybody in the office, and we don't have everybody behind our fort, our wall, our physical perimeter. So there's a couple of things that we can do. We can think outside the perimeter, and that's where things like cloud adoption come into use. Depends what kind of organisation you are. Some of us have been dragged kicking and screaming to the cloud, right? Whoops, that's not going to work anymore. Some of us don't particularly want to go to the cloud. Some verticals are under such strict compliance and regulation that the use of cloud is quite tough. And some just don't want to go there. But certain technologies, especially productivity technologies that we use, like Office 365, are kind of dragging us there. We have to go. So moving our security closer to the data and applications we use makes sense. And moving and using cloud to support the digital nomads, the roaming users, the mobile users make sense because it's easier to support them without bringing everything back into the network. And it's not on the slide here, but when we talk about zero trust is not a product. I have to say that first of all. Nobody buys a zero trust product. There isn't one, right? Zero trust and zero trust architecture is a set of principles. It's about our organizations adopting a zero trust approach. And I often see zero trust mixed up with SASE and SSE, but they're two different things. You can get a SASE product or a secure service edge product, but not a zero trust product. That's a journey that our organization needs to go on, and we need to think about zero trust as a starting point and then go forward. But one of the things with zero trust is, and it's not on this slide, but I do want to touch on it, is replacing things like the VPN. So have you heard the other acronym, ZTNA, Zero Trust Network Access? ZTNA is a VPN replacement. And for me, it's one of the fastest ways you can reduce risk. The VPN has been around forever. But what you're effectively doing is connecting a remote device that may not have been in the office for 2 years, 3 years. Extreme example, but it may not have been in the office for months or weeks. And we don't know the security posture of that device. But what you're doing is with a VPN, you're connecting it to your network. And what does things like ransomware love? It loves lateral movement. It loves to get a foothold inside the network, see where the vulnerabilities are, and then spread itself, go find the data, encrypt it, hold you to ransom. And that's just one example. Things like zero trust network access is that principle of don't trust anything by default. When we connect a device on a VPN, kind of trusted it to get on the network. ZTNA adopts the principle of I'm going to do all my things like posture checks, authentication, identification, and then I'm going to use policy control to only allow that device to an application. Connect the device to that application, don't connect the device to the network. Massively reduces the risk just by that one simple thing. Now, it is a technology we've been using for a long time, and it may take a while to replace, but for me, it's a big win. And I'll show you one of the other big wins as well. So yeah, implement cloud native zero trust SSE. I would say that because that's the type of platform we make. And things like appliances, consolidation, reduce the number of vendors that we're using so that we have a better all-round view when we're looking at logs and reports. It's much better. Yes, we've got SIMs to correlate all this information, but again, the fewer vendors you've got feeding into that SIM, the clearer the picture you're going to have. So Zero Trust Edge, it is a perfect storm. We had the pandemic, we had more mobile users, we've got more data moving to the cloud. It's all resulted in this kind of perfect storm for organizations to adopt something like a Zero Trust Edge. Yes, we've adopted that zero trust acronym. You know, I've got to be careful because my marketing manager's here. But marketing departments love to put zero trust in front of everything. But security edge, single security edge, you can put anything up there. But the idea is that organizations create a security edge. Just like we had a physical perimeter, right? We used to have a firewall, and then we'd have all these other security devices behind the firewall. We're just saying, look, move that perimeter to the cloud, makes life easier. You can consolidate a lot of vendors now, where we were buying IPS, where we were buying firewall, proxy, malware defense, DLP defense, and some of the newer technologies like CASB, browser isolation. You can put everything in a single security edge now. Make everybody go through that security edge. And again, you've reduced your risk because everybody's got a consistent security posture because they're all going through the same place. Used to go through the perimeter firewall, now they're just doing it in the cloud. And the idea is it should be any device. So this is one of our slides. So the concept of a security edge, this is us in our world, is that all of these things probably used to be separate products and vendors. Proxy, CASB for visibility, shadow IT, ZTNA, VPN replacement, browser isolation. We use it for supporting BYOD devices, contractors, things that are unmanaged that we can't put an agent on and manage. So we basically use this as like a sandbox, and we separate them completely from the application. Our reporting, malware defense, data loss prevention, firewall, decryption, so important now. Everything's encrypted. Again, 5 years ago, I might have said 80% or 85% of traffic. 10 years ago, I might have said half of traffic was encrypted. Everything's encrypted now. I can't even find an HTTP site anymore unless I bring one up myself. So this is, in our land, this is the security edge. The ultimate goal is that any device on any network, we should be completely agnostic. We really shouldn't care about what device someone's using, what network they're on. The idea is, in a zero trust architecture, is everybody's on the outside. We treat everybody, the concept of the perimeter is completely eroded. Everybody's on the outside, and then I've got my crown jewels, I've got all my company information up here, my enterprise apps. And if anybody needs to access an enterprise app with my company's data on it, they should be going through the security edge. So this is where we create our policies, we identify, we authenticate, we decrypt, we look in Word documents, we look in PDFs, we look for malware, we make sure that there's no data loss going on, we look for Microsoft PureView labels, all of that kind of thing. Are they allowed to go there in the first place? And if they are allowed to go there, are they doing anything risky that we need to stop? Here's the other thing about zero trust. Concepts, I should say. And let me compare it to a VPN. If you think about a VPN, and I'm not saying all VPNs, there are some that I've tried, but normally with a VPN you connect, and you connect once, and that's kind of it for the day, right? Whatever the timer is, 12 hours, 24 hours. So you authenticate, you identify yourself, and you connected that device to the network. At that time, everything may seem fine. But what happens during that 12-hour period? That device might move, could even go to a different country. That device may become infected during that 12-hour period. Or it just may be that there's something on that device, it is compromised already, and it's dormant, which is quite common. But at the time, it looks fine. We did our posture check, the antivirus is on, it's disencrypted, it looks fine. And sometime during that 12-hour period, 24-hour period, something bad happens. So in a true zero trust architecture, we have this concept of per connection checks. Every single new connection should go through the same checks. So now we don't want to ask the user to identify themselves every time. That's probably a check we can do without. But every time they go through the service edge, we should still check. Has anything changed with the AV? Did something turn it off? Did the device change location? Maybe we need to integrate with CrowdStrike, as an example. Maybe their risk profile changed. So we can start building up scores, and we can start doing things like adaptive access. So every time they connect, the risk score can go up or down. And although, yes, they authenticated, and we're going to maybe make it last 12 hours or 24 hours, the risk score may go up, may go down. And then we may want to make a decision. Do we want to cut that user off, or do we want to put them in a sandbox environment to reduce risk? So there's we can use new technology in quite unique ways now to reduce our risk profile. The security posture should be the same, any device, any network. And then we use things like adaptive scoring, dynamic scoring, to keep checking what's going on with this device. Is it acting strange? Is it starting to do things it shouldn't be? Is it 2 o'clock in the morning and we're seeing large data transfer? lower the high. It depends what way you use it, but either put up the risk score or lower the risk score, and maybe put them in a sandbox environment, or maybe just cut them off and wait until the morning to ring up the first line support. So how does this translate into zero trust? And I wanted to touch on this zero trust because, my gosh, everybody talks about zero trust. At least for us at iboss, and for me, I quite believe in this principle. NIST came out with this paper 800-207. Anybody had some great reading, 58 pages, something like that. Definitely sends you to sleep, but it is a good guide. It's very high level, but it is a good guide to what zero trust is and how you can implement zero trust. Probably you can boil it down to 7 steps. So we've taken NIST and we kind of built it into our product, not as a set of features, just as a way to help organisations adopt and move towards a zero trust model. And National Cyber Security Centre, they have guidance on zero trust architecture, and if you read it, it's pretty much based on NIST. But what I've tried to do here is boil it down to the most important points here. So there's certain terminology they use in this paper and the NCSC. So a resource is where we're going. We used to call it a destination, but a resource is something that we access. It's a database, it's a file share, it's our email. It's somewhere where we're going. An asset is a piece of hardware. Could be IoT, could be a laptop, could be a smart TV. A subject is a person, a human being. And what's important in a zero trust architecture is this concept of a PEP or a PDP. They use both acronyms interoperably. But the concept is any asset, any subject going to any resource should go through the PEP. Very difficult to do anything around zero trust or have a zero trust architecture without having some central place where you're going to implement your policies and controls. And that's what the PEP is about. It's just a new word. We used to call it a firewall. We used to call it a proxy. It's a gateway, right? It's a gateway to the resource. But we do love a new acronym in our business, don't we? So here's how it translates into special publication 800-207. It's simplistic, right? Everybody's on the outside. Every piece of hardware, every subject is in what we call an untrusted zone. And then in the middle, you have your SASE product, you have your SSE product, you have your firewall in the cloud product, whatever purchasing decision you made. But the key point is everybody has to go through here. Many vendors have used the tag phrase, you can't control what you don't see. It's true. So that's the policy enforcement point, and then you've got this thing called an implicit trust zone. So this is the important bit. The idea is, so this is my second tip for reducing risk, replace the VPN with a ZTNA, and this is the other thing. Get your resource. What's your resource? Office 365, Salesforce, Box.com, many SaaS applications, or they could be on-premise applications. Many organisations will never move away from on-premise for many reasons, or it will take them a long time. But if you anchor, what's another word? If you tie your resource to your security, your PEP, your PDP, your security edge. How many acronyms can I throw out in one session? What you've done is you've closed the front door. What's our biggest risk with moving to the cloud? They're public. They're open to the world. Our attack surface is huge. If I go to my Office 365, all of the vendors do this now. I used to have a handful 3 or 4 years ago. Now nearly everybody does it. That's charging you money at least to use their SaaS service. They call it different things, but in Microsoft land they call it conditional access. You can go to Office 365 and you can say, only allow traffic through my front door from my security edge. In our land, in iboss land, we use something called fixed IP addresses, and although it's in the cloud, all of our customers get fixed IP addresses, and you go to Office 365 and you say, only allow my organisation, XYZ, IP addresses that iboss have given them through the front door. It's a massive risk reduction straight away. Replace the VPN, close the front door to the rest of the world on your SaaS applications. It's big wins. It's big wins straight away. So they're my 2 tips for today. There's lots more you can do. Sandboxing, browser isolation, CASB for visibility, SIM integration, EDR. We know there's lots of technologies where we can go further on our zero trust journey or our journey to zero risk, right? But they're my 2 tips for quick wins as we go along this journey. Okay, so round up. Sorry for running over a little bit. So in summary, if you're looking for a good fit for your business, my tips, I guess, consistent protection. I think what we've grown up, what we've inherited is over years of buying security products is we've got different types of security layers for the resource. Is the resource inside the network or is it outside the network? If it's outside the network, maybe I'm using cloud security. If it's inside the network, I'm using a VPN and it's going for a different security product. Why should a resource be any different? If my HR system's inside the network today, it could be in the cloud next year. Let's get thinking about that now. The resource should have the same consistent security controls, posture, whether it's inside our network or whether it's in a public network or if it's in a privately hosted network. We shouldn't care. It's our resource, it's got our information on it, it's got our customers' information on it. So just be agnostic about it. Cloud native, well, maybe not everybody's got a cloud first strategy, but the concept of a single security edge I think is a good one. It will help you reduce vendor consolidation. It will make like home workers' user experience better because you're not doing things like backhauling data into the data center and then it comes through and it hairpins and it goes back out again. Just be cloud native. Things like data isolation, if you're in a highly regulated, highly compliant vertical, if you're in finance, government, healthcare, any of those, probably everyone these days. But things like data isolation is important. It gets you over a lot of hurdles with the auditors straight away, the GRC guys, because if you can prove that your cloud security is isolated and you're not mixing data and you know where the data is and you're not mixing it with other customers, that's a big tick straight away. Because that's what we were used to. When we were doing all this inside the network, there was no other customers running their data through our network. We weren't storing data for other customers, even if they were in the same building. So why should it be any different in the cloud? Multi-tenancy is the key word there. Make sure things are not over multi-tenanted. IP addresses we use, it helps. We always had dedicated IP addresses when we were inside the perimeter. Why not have them in the cloud as well? Lockdown cloud applications, I just spoke about that. Close the front door. Think about your explicit trust zone. And if you can close the front door on your app and tie it to your security stack, then it's a massive risk reduction.
Can I ask a quick question? Before you lock it down, what if the hackers have come in? How do you protect that?
So there are some other, like CASB, for example, we have this concept in security of data at rest, data in motion. So when you lock it down, you're really looking at data in motion. So what happens from this point forward? For data at rest, if something's been compromised already, we use other technology for looking at data at rest. Normally uses things like APIs to go look at SharePoint and Google Workspace and that kind of thing. Same policy, same controls, but looking at data that's already there. But it's a good question, yeah.
But again, your situation is already compromised. How do you recover?
How do you remediate?
Yeah.
Yeah, policy with an organisation. You've got to have a policy in effect. It might be part of your zero trust plan. Zero trust though really is like a networking principle. You're right. It's this point forward. Yeah.
Probably will take it one.
And then one cloud, one agent. Again, just vendor consolidation. The less agents we have to deal with, the less clouds, the better. So I've overrun. So going to be around, down on the stand if you've got any questions. Take questions now. I'm not quite sure how hungry people are. No, you've all had a long morning. But yeah, thank you for coming and thank you for listening.